They never expected you to make it this far. You were supposed to stay quiet, stay broken, stay lost. But even when you were buried in doubt, something inside of you kept moving, kept breathing, kept burning. That's what they didn't see coming. Your fire. You weren't built like them. You weren't meant to be soft, tame, or average. You were forged in silence, tempered in rejection. You rose through pain while they laughed. But laughter fades, and now they don't laugh anymore. Now they watch, nervous, confused, scared, because the moment you stop apologizing for who you are is the moment they start running. Let's make something clear. You're not the victim, you're the lesson. Every setback they caused, every wound they left, every rumor they spread, it was meant to break you, but instead it built you. Every time they tried to destroy you, it only sharpened your instincts, your senses, your spiritual edge. And here's the truth. Most people won't tell you power doesn't come from peace. Power comes from pressure, from darkness, from being the one they underestimated. They had the numbers. You had the force, and that's all you needed. Think about it. When you walk into a room, the energy shifts. People pause. Eyes follow. Even your silence screams louder than their words. That's not ego. That's presence. That's raw authority. And your enemies feel it too. That unease, that tension, that's their spirit recognizing yours. That's their fear realizing they can't touch you like before. You're not who you used to be. You don't flinch anymore. You don't beg. You don't explain. You move. You act. You dominate. You see. Fear doesn't come from what you say, it comes from who you've become. You've been tested. You've been mocked. You've been left alone in rooms full of snakes who smiled in your face and bit behind your back. And yet, you're still here. That alone terrifies them. Because if everything they did couldn't stop you when you were still learning, what happens now when you've finally started remembering who you really are? They can't handle your confidence because it exposes their insecurities. They can't handle your silence because it echoes their guilt. They can't handle your light because it reveals their darkness. And now they fear your voice, your moves, your name, because it reminds them that their power was never real, only borrowed, only loud, only temporary. But yours was divine. And divine power doesn't ask for permission. Here's what they'll never admit. They studied you, copied you, tried to become you, but no matter how hard they try, they can't be you, because what you carry isn't found in books, trends, or titles. It's found in suffering, in obedience, in divine timing, and in every scar you carry like armor. While they worship attention, you mastered restraint. While they seek followers, you command presence. While they play games, you walk in truth and truth. That's what shakes their foundation. You're not just a person anymore. You're a force. You're a storm in motion. And they can't stop what's already been set in motion. Remember, the moment you stopped caring about their approval was the moment you started rising. They wanted you to stay distracted. You chose discipline. They wanted you confused. You chose clarity. They wanted you emotional. You chose control. That's why they're afraid. Because now you're untouchable. You no longer react. You respond. You no longer chase. You attract. You no longer explain. You execute. You no longer beg. You become. And that shift, that's the death of every enemy you've ever had. Because they only had power when you didn't know yours. Now, the illusion is broken. They wanted war. You became the battlefield. They wanted control. You became chaos. They wanted silence. You became the voice of everything they tried to bury. Let them watch. Let them talk. Let them wonder how you did it. The truth is, it was never about luck. It was destiny. You just finally stopped resisting it. You stopped dimming your light to make them comfortable. You stopped playing small to make them feel big. You stopped breaking yourself to keep fake people whole, and now they can't handle the version of you that no longer needs them. That's power. That's fear. That's evolution. You don't have to prove anything anymore. Your existence alone is a threat to the systems they tried to trap you in. You're walking proof that they failed, that every plan, every lie, every scheme fell flat. You were supposed to break, instead you built. You were supposed to quit, instead you conquered. And now they can't control the story anymore, because the story isn't theirs, it's yours. You don't walk with arrogance. You walk with certainty. You don't speak to impress. You speak to command. And your presence, it's not just noticed, it's felt. In the air, in the tension, in their nervous glances when you enter the room. They feel it in their chest like a warning, like a siren going off in their spirit, because something in you shifted, and they know. The version of you that tolerated disrespect is dead. You're not here for revenge. You're here for dominance. This isn't about clapping back. It's about rising so high they choke on their own silence. They don't deserve your words. Your progress is the punishment. Your glow is the judgment. Your silence is the sentence. Let them wonder. Let them spiral. You don't explain growth to those committed to misunderstanding you. You just keep leveling up, quietly, ruthlessly, consistently. Every time you move in silence, you multiply your power. Every time you say nothing, they panic louder, because their power depended on your weakness. And now that weakness has turned into weaponized wisdom. Your energy is different now. Sharper, cleaner, untouchable. You don't chase, you attract. You don't argue, you observe. You don't fear, you forecast. And most of all, you don't get even. You elevate. They're used to the old you. The one who gave too many chances, explained too many times, loved too deeply. That version of you was necessary. But now, that version has evolved. They had their shot. They wasted it. Now they have to watch. Because every move you make is a reminder of what they lost and what they can never regain. And that's the part that haunts them the most. You're not angry. You're not hurt. You're not bitter. You're just focused, unreachable, unapologetic, unstoppable. That single quotes. What turns fear into full-blown panic? When they can't manipulate you. When they can't figure you out. When they realize that nothing they do gets to you anymore. They tried to use your kindness as weakness until you showed them it was actually strategy. They mistook your silence for submission until you rose like thunder without warning. They tried to bury you, but you weren't the seed, you were the soil. Everything grows through you now. Everything bends to your will. You don't even need to speak. Your life has become the loudest message in the room. You don't need revenge. Success has made you legendary. Your footsteps are sermons. Your stillness is prophecy. And your progress, that's the fire they can't put out. You've become the storm they pretended you could never survive. You move like you've already won because spiritually you have. You walk like royalty because you're aligned with something far greater than the chaos they tried to drown you in. You don't fear loss anymore, you understand. It's just the universe making room for what's truly yours. You don't fear enemies anymore. You understand their hate is just misdirected admiration. You don't fear failure anymore. You understand it's just divine redirection. You don't fear being alone anymore, because even in isolation, you are divinely protected. This is what scares them. They can't use your past against you anymore, because you've turned your wounds into weapons. They can't trap you with guilt anymore, because you've burned every bridge that led back to your old self. They can't threaten your peace anymore, because you've already walked through the worst and came out wiser, colder, and more focused than ever. You've reached the level where your presence alone creates discomfort in the hearts of those who once disrespected you. They can't joke about you anymore, because your growth has become undeniable. They can't ignore you anymore, because your light has become unavoidable. They can't attack you anymore, because the universe now fights on your behalf. You are a walking prophecy of everything they prayed would never happen. Your confidence is evidence of their failure. Your resilience is proof that their efforts were in vain. And your elevation, that's the ending they never expected. Because this was never just about proving them wrong. It was about proving yourself right. You don't even need their apologies. You've outgrown their language. You've surpassed their comprehension. You're moving on frequencies they can't tune into, speaking in codes they can't decode, rising to heights they can't reach. They once thought they had the upper hand, but now they look up and see your back. Your aura speaks for itself, and every time they see you, they remember. They couldn't stop you. They couldn't break you. They couldn't erase you. And now they fear what you'll become next, because you haven't even shown your full power yet. That's what keeps them up at night. That's what haunts them in silence. Not what you've done, but what you're still capable of. And that's just the beginning. They thought you peaked. They thought you were done. They thought that final betrayal, that final heartbreak, that final loss would crush you. But you didn't just survive. You evolved. You became something they can't predict, can't study, can't mimic. You became unpredictable. And in their world, unpredictability is danger. You're not who you were last year, last month, not even yesterday. You're growing too fast for their gossip to catch up. You're shifting so hard, their lies are collapsing under the weight of your truth. You've become the walking contradiction to their expectations. They said you'd fall. You rose. They said you'd break. You built. They said you'd run. You stood tall, and now their voices carry no weight in your atmosphere. Their opinions can't reach your altitude, because when you rise high enough, the noise fades, and all that's left is the silence of being untouchable. You don't argue anymore. You don't explain your moves. You don't announce your plans. You just execute, and it terrifies them. Because in a world addicted to attention, your silence is power. Your moves are thunder. Your growth is violence to their ego. They remember who you were when you needed them, when you craved validation, when you doubted yourself. That's the version they liked. That's the version they tried to keep alive. But that version is dead. And the rebirth, the one standing now, it doesn't ask for space, it takes it. They're uncomfortable around you because your energy demands truth. Your aura forces people to confront who they really are. You expose cowards without saying a word. You shake the insecure just by walking in the room. And you've stopped playing the roles that kept them safe. You no longer serve their comfort. You serve your calling. You no longer protect their feelings. You protect your peace. You no longer dim your light. You blind everything false with your presence. Your growth is loud. Even when you're silent, your confidence is disruptive. Even when you smile, your existence is war to everything built on lies. They wanted control over you, but you reclaimed your soul. They wanted access to you, but you closed the door and burned the map. Now they wander, looking for the version of you that no longer exists. And the real you, you're too far gone, too awakened, too elevated. They fear what you'll say next. But they fear what you won't say even more, because silence from you means action is coming. They can't read you, can't predict you, can't label you. You've become a frequency, and only those aligned can hear you now. Only those real enough can stand beside you now. Only those loyal enough will ever reach your inner circle again. That's power. You don't need crowds anymore. You don't need noise. You've reached the level where solitude isn't loneliness, it's strategy. You're not isolating to hide. You're isolating to build, to plan, to rise. And when you emerge, they'll swear it was overnight. They'll swear it was luck. They'll swear it was handed to you. But you'll know the truth. It was pain, it was patience, it was pressure, and it was purpose. You didn't just survive the storm, you became it. And now, they can't tell if you're the blessing or the warning, because you move like prophecy, speak like fire, walk like destiny, and nothing shakes you anymore, because you understand now. Your enemies were necessary, their hate was holy, their betrayal was divine timing. Without them, you would have stayed soft, stayed small, stayed silent, but their rejection became your rocket fuel. Their mockery became your momentum. They gave you pain. You turned it into power. They gave you darkness. You built empires in it. They gave you fire, and you learned to burn back. Now you are untouchable, not because you're above pain, but because you've mastered it. You've learned to walk through flames while smiling. You've learned to lose everything and keep building. You've learned to watch everything you love walk away and still stand like a mountain. They can't hurt you anymore because you already met the worst versions of people and survived. They can't trick you anymore because you already learned the masks they wear. They can't trap you anymore because you've outgrown their cages. You've become sovereign, unchained, complete. And now, they fear not only who you are, but who you're becoming. Because every day you sharpen, every step you elevate, every breath you gain more clarity. And the more clarity you gain, the more dangerous you become. Not to good people, but to fake ones, to liars, to snakes, to manipulators. You're not their enemy, you're their mirror, and they hate you because you reflect the truth they try to hide. Let them talk, let them gather, let them plan. You don't need to defend yourself anymore. The results are your revenge. The glow is your response. The peace is your power. And the silence is your storm. They wanted you confused. Now they're the ones lost. They wanted you weak. Now they tremble when your name is mentioned. They wanted you finished. Now they whisper, praying they don't see you again. But the truth, you were never gone. You were just preparing, just sharpening, just becoming. And now you've arrived, not for revenge, not for applause, but for dominion. This isn't personal, it's prophecy. And when they see you now, walking in full power, speaking with full conviction, rising with full force, they'll realize the person they tried to break has become the person they can never escape.